Whenever I come up with new ideas for builds, usually one of the best ways to go about thinking of a new puzzle is lining up some arbitrary lines between pieces and then imagining a cut on that plane. Just by following these cuts, even without any clear idea of how the puzzle is going to turn out, usually yields a pretty good result. So I went through my usual process of tightening up a 3x3 to get it ready to start cutting on the bandsaw. I decided that I wanted to make a cut very similar to the hexagonal dipyramid, which is also the precursor to the axis cube, a puzzle that I have failed on in the past, and I had an idea for a specific arrangement of those cuts throughout the cube. I lined up the blade on my bandsaw with the cut that I wanted to make, and then I just started cutting everything out. There's really no degrees here, I was just lining everything up by eye. I can't tell you how tempted I am to start extending these parts in the center here, but baby steps, I don't even know what I'm building right now. I had an idea for a puzzle that would be kind of like a tetrahedron, but made out of 12 of these cuts that would be placed on opposite corners. Opposite, adjacent, I don't really know what the terminology is here, but this is what it looks like. Now that everything was cut, this is the shape that I was looking for, and it was time to start filling everything with epoxy sculpt. One of the great things about this particular mod is that I didn't have to do any extensions, and I just had to stuff all the pieces, so I didn't have to disassemble anything. Now that everything was filled, and after the epoxy sculpt had hardened, this is what it looks like, and you can kind of see the shape that I'm going for now. So I took the puzzle over to my belt sander and I started sanding all of the faces down, and this was actually kind of tricky. I didn't have any good reference points to line up all of the faces, and I had to make sure that they were all symmetrical, so I just sanded down very slowly and tried to make sure that all of the pieces were uniform and the same size. Whenever I'm sanding pieces in this way, I try and pick a couple of points on the cube that are the same throughout all of the different areas that I'm going to be sanding, and then I try and line up those areas and try and sand them all down to the exact same dimension. It's kind of hard to explain what I mean by this, but all I'm trying to do is find one point that is the same everywhere so that I can keep referencing that as I'm sanding everything down. The cube is, after all, a cube, and so a lot of those pieces are the exact same size, and so you can usually trust one point throughout the puzzle. In this particular case, I'm lining up the bottom part of that centerpiece with the tip of the corner. If you draw an imaginary line between those points, that gives you a pretty good visual guide on where you need to sand down to, and that area is present throughout the entire puzzle, so you can use that as a reference point. After I was finished sanding everything, this is what the puzzle looked like, and you can see a couple of areas that I hadn't filled in enough, but I would repair those areas off camera as I was rounding over all of the pieces. I got a nail file out and I knocked off all of the sharp edges, and then I rubbed everything down with a sanding block and some Scotch-Brite. After I'd finished all of that, I cut out all of the stickers, and here it is, the puzzle is finally done. I wasn't really sure what kind of color scheme I was going to use for this puzzle, but I'm pretty happy with how it looks. I just decided to go for the same colors that I used on the slightly more truncated 3x3 that I did a couple days ago. As for the actual puzzle itself, I decided to scramble it up here, and you can see that it is a shape-shifting puzzle because I've removed so much material from some areas and not so much from others. And I really like this kind of design. I think that just jumping in and making a load of cuts and seeing what happens is the best way to go about experimenting with different kinds of puzzle modifications. I definitely think I'm going to try and experiment further with this kind of puzzle, since if I extend out on the areas that I haven't cut down, I might end up with an even cooler shape, but that's for another video. But anyways, I hope you guys like this puzzle, thank you all for watching, and I'll see you next time.